Alright, everybody strap on your heckin' big boy pants. Because boy oh boy is it time. It is officially that time of the year for me to finally divulge my 2021 Academy Award nominations predictions. Couple of things before we jump right in. I tend to talk a lot for a while. These videos usually wind up being around 45 minutes long. I'm going to try and not do that to you guys this time. I'm going to try and be quick, short, concise, to the point. These are my nomination predictions for the Big Six. Original and adapted screenplay, all four performance categories, Best Director, and Best Picture. Listen, okay? I'm not paid by Gold Derby. I'm not by any means an expert. I want to hear your guys' opinions. But if you're going to be a dickhead about it to other people in my comments section, go elsewhere. You understand? I've been doing this now for something like 6 years, I'm pretty sure. And weirdly enough, this has been one of the easier lists of Oscar nominations to compile. Originally, I had expected this to be a very difficult list to make, and I kind of found it coming to me a lot easier than expected. That's not to say that, you know, I wrote every name down with complete and utter confidence. There's been a lot of weird shit happening at all of these precursors, but I think for the first time in a long time, the winners are going to be harder to predict than the nominations, which I kind of like, because for the past, 3-4 years, we've gone into the Oscars having a pretty good idea of what was going to happen. Maybe if not in picture and director, at the very least in the 4 acting categories. And while we're starting to know how at least 2 of them are going to go, 2 of them are still pretty much up in the fucking air. So it's going to be really, really fun to talk about these winners as we get closer. And these nominations, while still being tight and having a lot of room for upsets and crazy stuff to happen, I think there's a lot less room than there has been in the past, especially when you look at something like last year, which was arguably my hardest list to compile in terms of creating nominations. So, without further ado, I'm going to start at screenplay, work my way to performances, up to director, and up to picture. So let's get this shit started. Let's rock. Am I on coke? Where did I just put my phone? Oh. So my first category, which is Best Adapted Screenplay, actually contains one of my hotter takes, oddly enough. The way that I see this category, I see there being 4 pretty set-in-stone nominees. You've got The Father, you've got Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, you've got Nomadland, you've got One Night in Miami. I don't really think anyone sees those 4 going anywhere. The Father has been nominated pretty much everywhere it can possibly be nominated. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, with August Wilson being an August Wilson play, and Fences receiving the amount of love that it did way back when that came out, especially in the area of screenplay. I don't see this film in particular missing out on that category. Nomadland is the very clear and obvious frontrunner in this category. That's not going anywhere. And One Night in Miami is a really strong nomination, and I think it's going to be a really good place to get One Night in Miami some of those nominations that it needs. When it comes to the 5th slot, I know a lot of people are really confident in News of the World, and it's very difficult for me to not be confident in News of the World. But it has lost so much in so many other places. I would have felt way more confident putting News of the World in this category if somebody like Helena Zengel was still a really strong contender. I do think we're going to see News of the World appear at the Academy Awards. I think it's a really good shoe-in for a slot in Best Score, or maybe somewhere in Best Costume Design. But I don't know if it's going to swing enough voters to get it into the screenplay category, so where does that land us with a 5th slot? For me personally, and I wasn't going to do this until the PGA nominations came out a few days ago. Or yesterday, I should say. But the love for Borat, subsequent movie film, recently, has been pretty astonishing to me. I knew that Maria Bakalova was going to be nominated, but I didn't realize that this film was going to receive as much love as it has. With Maria Bakalova winning the Critics' Choice Award and Borat showing up as one of the 10 PGA nominations, it's abundantly clear to me that this film is loved. Plus, think of its political relevancy. Right, we're slowly moving away from the era of the president whose name I won't mention for the sake of keeping that out of my mouth and politics out of my videos. But that was an extremely timely film, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of Academy members as a result of that. On top of that, you know, It's a deeply improv film, but that didn't impact the original's chances whatsoever. Borat found itself in that screenplay category. So I struggle very heavily in not putting this film into my 5. And Borat's subsequent movie film takes my 5th slot in this category. If I wind up being incorrect and News of the World overtakes it, I won't be inherently shocked, but part of me can't fathom this screenplay not winding itself into this category with how well Borat has been perceived by not only something like the Golden Globes or the SAG Awards with Bakalova getting in, but also with Guild Awards at this rate, such as the PGAs. Original screenplay was a tad bit tougher in terms of determining my 5th slot. I think again in this category, we have a pretty set 4. I don't think Mank is going anywhere with Jack Fincher's screenplay. I don't think that movie is going anywhere. I think most people would be willing to agree with that. I don't think Minari is going anywhere considering the strength of that film right now. It's really on an upward surge, and it continues to surge, and it's hitting a high, and I think it's going to find itself in screenplay. Promising Young Woman and Trial of the Chicago 7 seem to be the 2 films that are going to be battling it out. What will win, we'll talk a little bit more about when we get closer, but I don't think anyone's denying that those 2 screenplays are going to be the ones that are fighting it out at the Oscars for the win. So what do we get for a 5th slot? And I really struggled with this one because there's a part of me that really wants to put Sound of Metal in here over Soul. To be quite honest with you, I think both of those films are going to have relatively similar success, not only with Academy Award nominations, but potentially with wins. We're looking at Sound of Metal as being something that might creep up and win something like Best Editing, or might even wind itself up in Best Picture, depending on how many they take, where I think Soul has a worse chance. Soul is something of a lock right now in Best Score for Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, so they both kind of have a technical award going for them. It's a tough balance, and it's difficult for me to argue with the history of Pixar's success in these categories, particularly when Pete Docter is in the director and writer's chair. Historically, they like to nominate Pete Docter. They did it with Inside Out, and they've done it before that. And as a result, I have to put Soul in this category, even though I think it's got less of a chance at getting in the picture. It's a difficult balance to explain. And I think if Sound of Metal winds up in this category, it's really going to demonstrate how much we may have underestimated that film in terms of bringing it at the Oscars. And I think if it winds up in screenplay, we're going to see it for sure in picture. I have to go the safe route here, and I have to go with Soul. I have a pretty solid amount of confidence in the Academy to once again award Pixar in this category, especially with the subject matter of this film in particular. Pete Docter tends to write screenplays that, while not always being modern in a sense, I don't want to say modern, I want to say relatable to what's happening in the outside world and relevant, he's done that now. And I think that kind of screenplay is going to be very difficult for the Academy to ignore. Plus, it's a lock in animated feature, and historically with these Pete Docter films, when those movies are an original screenplay, they win the animated film category. I see that dynamic happening the same way here, where Soul is going to find itself an original screenplay, and we're going to have a no-brainer coming into the animated feature film category. So that brings us to supporting actress, which obviously in terms of a win right now is as far out there as one could humanly imagine. With nominations, however, I do think it's a little bit more set in stone. A few hours ago, the BAFTA nominations came out, and any other year, particularly in this category with the Jennifer Lopez snub last year, I'd be focusing very heavily on what happened in this category at the BAFTAs this year. Instead, what I've done is I went back over the last 2 hours and watched Men in Black until they snapped that shit out of my mind at the very end, because I truly don't believe that I can use those awards as a precursor right now to the Academy Awards. I don't believe that there is going to be an overlap there. So I'm going really on the basis of the Globes, the SAGs, how these films have been received, and my gut. And Bakalova for me is a for sure lock. She was a for sure lock before winning the Critics' Choice Award, and I think she's a for sure lock now. Fucking hell, right now she is pretty much the front runner in this category. Unless Glenn Close, who is also in my predictions, can sneak up and win the SAG, which we know Hillbilly Elegy was really loved by the SAGs. Glenn Close, with this 8th Oscar nomination, is still fighting for that career win. It could be this one for her. Either way, I don't see Glenn Close being out of this category. Olivia Colman has recently been being talked about a lot in my comment section or in my streams as being somebody who might be snubbed, especially today, losing out the BAFTA nomination despite being a very heavily regarded British actress. To that point, I can't count that knowledge in my head, because look at how many massive frontrunners or even locks for these categories that are British missed out today. We had Gary Oldman miss out for Mank. We had Carey Mulligan miss out for Promising Young Woman. Sacha Baron Cohen missed out for Trial of the Chicago 7. And we had Olivia Colman miss out for The Father. I think Olivia Colman is still such a fresh face in the Academy voters' minds. Plus, this performance is so versatile from what she did in The Favorite, which I think is a big reason that Daniel Kaluuya has been as successful as he has been this year, looking at his performance in Judas and the Black Messiah versus that of his performance in Get Out. So for me, Olivia Colman is somebody that I'm going to set into this category. Then I started fighting with myself because I didn't know whether to put Amanda Seyfried or Jodie Foster into this category. I will quickly address the fact that Yoo Jung-yoon is a pick for me to land in Minari. She has made a lot of noise. They're running a much better, A24 at least is running a much better campaign this year, it seems, than they were running for something like The Farewell last year, which missed out wholeheartedly, entirely, all across the board. I have Yoo Jung-yoon in here. I think she's still a big sleeper hit to win that performance category, so keep an eye out for that. The fight between Amanda Seyfried and Jodie Foster, for me, is a very difficult one, and it's one that truly hasn't received much clarity at all. Obviously, neither were up for the BAFTA, but what the fuck does that tell us? Neither of them are up for the SAG, and Jodie Foster won the Golden Globe. And I don't think Helena Zengel is picking up this nomination. I don't think that performance made enough noise for that type of performance to be nominated here. I just don't foresee that happening. So for me, it came down to Seyfried versus Foster. And looking at those two performances, it's a very difficult choice to make, and it's the Golden Globes aren't historically known as being the most accurate precursor in the world for the Academy Awards. Anybody who says that would be lying to themselves. But when you win a Golden Globe, it's still a big deal. Winning a Golden Globe is big for the Academy Awards. It doesn't often happen that somebody will win and then not be nominated, but it's happened enough that I'm relatively comfortable with saying Jodie Foster might not get this nomination. I admittedly have not seen The Mauritanian. I've been stuck in quarantine for the last week and a half, and by the time I'd be able to see it when I'm released this weekend, it would be too late for me to make an Oscar nomination video before Monday when the nominations come out. From the trailers, the marketing, and the clips that I've seen, her performance heavily reminds me of Annette Bening in The Report. And that performance wound up falling completely on its face when it came to award season, despite picking up a couple of big nominations like Foster did. Now, I know Annette Bening didn't end up winning, but it's not unlike the Golden Globes to award a supporting performance to somebody who doesn't end up being nominated, a la Aaron Taylor-Johnson in 2016 for Nocturnal Animals, who won supporting actor and didn't even wind up being nominated at the Oscars. The Globes have done it before, where people have won in categories and didn't even wind up at the Academy Awards. Look at Aaron Sorkin for Steve Jobs way back when. Amanda Seyfried, again, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is somebody who has gone from a career of films that wouldn't be very directed towards the Academy. Mamma Mia isn't the type of film that the Academy is historically going to recognize. Something like First Reformed, perhaps, but A24, up till now, really hasn't known how to properly run an Oscar campaign. They've seemed to have finally figured it out. Amanda Seyfried is the type of performer who has kind of come out of far left field and put up a really great performance in a film about old Hollywood playing Marianne Davies. I think that fact is inescapable. It's very difficult for me to not picture Amanda Seyfried in this category. And as hard as it is for me to not put Jodie Foster in here, despite that Golden Globe win, I think her equalness and missing out on the SAG award is something to pay attention to, on top of the fact, and again, I don't like mentioning the BAFTAs, but if I have to mention the BAFTAs right now, The Mauritanian was exceptionally successful at the BAFTAs, and yet Jodie Foster missed out on a nomination. So did Seyfried, but I see Seyfried's performance in this film calling to the Academy more in terms of the way her career trajectory has gone, and the performance itself, I have to pick Seifert for the 5th slot in here, and those make up my 5 nominees in this category. In the area of supporting actor, this wound up being a little bit easier than I thought it would be. We're obviously going to land ourselves with that Daniel Kaluuya nomination and likely a win. I've talked a lot about his performance. Leslie Odom Jr. is for sure in there. He has yet to really miss out, other than... Actually, now I think about it, I don't think he has missed out at all. I think the 3 that we can very, very safely keep into this category would be that of Kaluuya, would be that of Sacha Baron Cohen, and would be that of Leslie Odom Jr. The 3 of them have really yet to miss in any precursor that counts this year, and I think all 3 of them are going to wind up there no matter what, 100%. The last 2 are a little bit trickier, but for me, I can't really see anyone else filling these slots. I put Chadwick Boseman in for The Five Bloods. I really had to see if they double nominated him for the SAG before I felt comfortable putting them in here. But I think once they did that, it's one of those things that once you've seen that type of double nomination, you really can't go back. Despite the fact that The Five Bloods has lost a lot of steam, somebody who hasn't lost a lot of steam in this awards race has been Chadwick Boseman. He's such a hard lock in leading actor that I think he's going to make a lot of noise elsewhere. Historically, typically, when people are double nominated, they usually come out ahead with a win. Unlike Scarlett Johansson last year, take a look at someone like Jamie Foxx way back in 2004 when he won for Ray and was also nominated in supporting actor for Collateral. Chadwick Boseman is such a runaway in leading actor that I think it opens up that immense possibility of him having that double nomination, even for a film that's lost pretty much all of its steam, if not all of its steam, coming into the Oscar nominations. But I do have Chadwick Boseman in here for the double nomination, and I do have Paul Raci in here for Sound of Metal. He finally showed up today at the BAFTA nominations. He was at the Critics' Choice Awards. It's difficult choosing this 5th slot as well. You could go for someone like Jared Leto in The Little Things, though I struggle to do that because of how understated I think his performance has been. Plus, I don't know if his campaigning is going to be hard enough to get him all the way to the Oscars when they have someone at their disposal like a Paul Raci. This is the type of performance that Academy voters love. This is the type of supporting actor performance the Oscars love. It's very reminiscent to me of Mark Rylance in Bridge of Spies, and I think it's very reminiscent of that, at least earlier in the season for me. I thought Paul Raci had a chance of winning before Kaluuya started sweeping everything because of how that performance felt. It's a very dynamic supporting performance. It's a very subtle and nuanced supporting performance, which, again, the Academy loves, and especially with Riz Ahmed being such a lock, I think they're going to be forced to pay attention to both of these guys. I really, truly don't believe the Academy puts one up without the other. I think that's how well they work together in tandem. And, you know, if Jared Leto winds up in there, I'll eat my words and I'll bite the bullet. But I truly have to believe that with that performance and with what I've seen, Paul Raci is set for me in being in that supporting actor slot. And depending on where the SAG goes, if it goes Kaluuya's way, we've got a Kaluuya sweep. If it goes some crazy other way, keep an eye out for that Mark Rylance type sneak up that he did way back in 2015 for Paul Raci. I think it's very, very plausible if Kaluuya misses the SAG. But if he wins the SAG, then forget everything I just fucking said. Leading actress was another 5th slot debate that I was kind of going back and forth with myself on. I don't think at this point anybody would be willing to doubt the strength of Viola Davis, Vanessa Kirby, Frances McDormand, and Carey Mulligan in this category. I think the 4 of them were really set in stone. And before the Golden Globes happened this year, I think we were all kind of struggling a little bit with that 5th slot. Zendaya actually looked like a really good bet for Malcolm and Marie, right up until Andra Day swept the rug out from fucking everybody and won the Golden Globe for Best Actress Drama. Again, I don't want to sit here and call the Golden Globes the best precursor of all time, but winning a lead category in a drama category at the Golden Globes is a big fucking deal. It's a very big fucking deal. The last time somebody won in that category without being nominated at the Oscars was Kate Winslet way back in 2008 when she won Lead Actress Drama for Revolutionary Road, and even that's cheating a little bit because she also won at the Golden Globes that same year for The Reader for Supporting Actress, and then won at the Oscars that year for Leading Actress for The Reader, not for Revolutionary Road. So it's a little bit of a weird balance. All that is to say, winning this category is a pretty sure bet that you're going to wind yourself into that 5th slot. I finally got around to seeing that film because it came out very recently, and it's a very Oscar-type performance for a lead actor or actress category. The Oscars really like it when similar to Seyfried, but not exactly like Seyfried, when somebody who's not inherently known for being an excellent film performer, somebody who potentially makes music, say in Andrew Day's case, comes in and gives a killer performance in a movie like The United States versus Billie Holiday. They love it when singers or, say, models or really anything outside of the realm of being an actor, someone like that comes in and delivers a knockout performance. It won't always get you a win. It got Halle Berry a win. It didn't get Lady Gaga a win, but I think it's definitely going to sneak Andra Day into this slot. I think she's a for sure bet for this nomination. And again, let's see how the SAG goes, because if Carey Mulligan loses out on the SAG, we actually might have a really interesting race on our hands, and one that I think it's very plausible that Andra Day could sneak up and potentially take from under the feet of all of us. Best Leading Actor is another one that I have spent quite some time now battling back and forth with myself regarding a fifth slot. I always find myself saying it's the year of the fifth slot, and somehow it's every year. I think we have another three here that we can be very, very certain are going to be set. Riz Ahmed, Chadwick Boseman, Anthony Hopkins. The three of them very clearly aren't going anywhere. Despite the fact that Ahmed and Hopkins have no shot, they're definitely going to be nominated. They have yet to miss out on anything, and I really, really highly doubt they're going to miss out on anything here. I think Gary Oldman is a lock. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. I do not see Gary Oldman going anywhere. He is still a very fresh face for the Academy. Prior to 2017, anytime you would Google best actors who have never won an Oscar, Gary Oldman would typically headline that list. He's got the career thing going for him right now. He has the legacy going for him. I personally believe that for the next long time, at least probably until he wins again, he's pretty much got a nomination set for him anytime he does a performance like this. He's playing Herman Mankiewicz, guys. He's playing Herman Mankiewicz in a black and white film that takes place in Hollywood in the 1940s. This is the kind of performance that the Academy awards. They might not give him the Oscar. They're not going to give him the Oscar, but he's going to be in this category. It makes perfect logical sense. That, for me, comes down to the fifth slot again. And it's Delroy Lindo versus Steven Yeun. And back in May, I would have called myself crazy for not saying Delroy Lindo was going to be in this category. But I can't in goodwill or conscience say that Delroy Lindo is going to be nominated because I simply have no plausible cause or reason to. He needed to make the Globes, and when he didn't make the Globes, he needed to make the SAGs, and he didn't make either one of those two. Chadwick Boseman is a different story because, again, he's such a runaway in this leading actor category that it calls a lot more attention to other work that he completed this year, like his performance in Da 5 Bloods, which is being very well heavily campaigned now. But Da 5 Bloods has fallen off so significantly, while Minari has been on that constant rise. Plus, with Yoo Jung-yoon being in heavy discussion to win, potentially, the supporting actress category, she's one of the front runners right now, it's difficult to ignore the main leading performance in that movie being Steven Yeun. I have to go with Steven Yeun over this, largely on the basis that he made it into the SAG Awards, but also on a massive basis that Minari is looking like it's going to be a pretty massive powerhouse at the Academy Awards this year. Those are my five. If Lindo sneaks up, it's going to be in lieu of Steven Yeun, or it'll be in lieu of Gary Oldman. I do think that is a possibility. I think it's a pretty far out there possibility, but I think it's one that could happen. But I don't think those top three are going anywhere whatsoever at all anytime soon. Now we arrive at Best Director, which for the moment is very timely because the DGA nominations came out about 15 minutes ago, and depending on what had happened there, I was going to push this video or I wasn't going to push this video. And this category is tough. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a tough category. I'm not going to shake... Oh, Jesus, man. I'm like looking at him now and like part of me almost wants to change him, but I'm sticking to my guns. Listen, I do not see a world, a fathomable reality, in which they do not nominate three women for Best Director. The Academy has been under a lot of scrutiny under the last 7 or 8 years. First it was Oscar So White, now it's largely in the region of Best Director and the fact that no women filmmakers have been nominated for quite some time. other than, obviously, Greta Gerwig. It's happened very frequently, and they now have the ability at their disposal to nominate 3 female directors in a category of 5. I cannot perceive that there is a world out there that this doesn't happen in. I know Regina King just missed out on the DGA nomination, but first of all, Regina King has such a legacy for the Academy Awards. You know, even winning for Beale Street, missing out on several heavy precursors, it goes to show that the Academy has a lot of respect for her. As it's her directorial debut, and as One Night in Miami, I think is going to be very successful at the Oscars, I don't see her missing out on this category. I'm also predicting Emerald Fennell, as I think Promising Young Woman is going to be a big powerhouse when it comes to the Oscars, and I don't think anybody is going to put an ounce of doubt into Chloe Zhao for being nominated for Nomadland. Then it comes down to the final 2 slots. David Fincher has been there all season, all across the board for Mank. I don't think he's going anywhere either. I think Mank is going to be successful enough in its nominations, and it's stylish enough in that old Hollywood style to land David Fincher in that Best Director slot. The question comes down to Aaron Sorkin or Lee Isaac Chung for that 5th slot. And I have no reason to expect that Aaron Sorkin isn't going to make it into this category. It is very difficult for me to not place Lee Isaac Chung into this, especially just making the DGA. But the Directors Guild Awards have a history of getting 3 or 4 right. Not always all 5. Last year, Taika Waititi was in there instead of Todd Phillips. I have to take those nominations with a slight grain of salt. This is definitely the choice that I'm the least confident in. I think Lee Isaac Chung has a really, really good chance at finding himself into this category. Aaron Sorkin, this is not Aaron Sorkin's directorial debut. His directorial debut was, by technicality, Molly's Game. Molly's Game was not very heavily recognized by the Academy. It wasn't campaigned very well. The release schedule didn't work very well for Oscar nominations, and it only wound up in adapted screenplay because that category was quite loose that year. This is the first time Aaron Sorkin has directed a film that has and is going to receive a lot of attention from the Academy. It's the front runner in editing right now, despite the fact that I think Sound of Metal could creep up on it. It's a big contender in picture. Sacha Baron Cohen is winding himself in that supporting actor slot. I can't foresee them not tying it all together with giving Aaron Sorkin his first director nomination. I really cannot foresee that possibility. If Lee Isaac Chung is going to creep up, he's either going to kick out Fennell, he's going to kick out King, or he's going to kick out Sorkin. I don't know which of those would happen, but my official predictions, I have to stick with those 3 women. I cannot possibly believe that's not going to happen, and I gotta stick with Fincher, and I gotta stick with Sorkin. It makes the most sense to me. Whoever is going to be in that 6th place, it's going to be by a fucking hair. It's going to be this close, whoever ends up in that 6th place slot. And I'm very, very interested and excited to see what's going to happen this coming Monday, because I think this race, not in terms of a win, is interesting. I think we know who's taking this win, but in terms of who's going to be nominated in this category, I think we've got ourselves an interesting race, and people are bouncing back and forth a lot on their predictions, which I love to see. And then we arrive at Picture. Picture is still as immensely difficult to predict as it has ever been, because the rule of it being a set 10 does not go into effect to next year. If you follow my channel at all, you know how pissed off that makes me. I fucking hate that they slide between like 6 and 10, because it makes this category practically difficult, or practically impossible to predict for someone like me who makes YouTube videos. So I picked 10. I picked a 10 that I think are the most viable. They could go with 7, they could go with 9, they could go with all 10, they could go with 8. I don't have the first clue how many they're going to pick. I think it's safe to say that we have a really, really solid 7. I think we have a really, really solid 7 that aren't going to go anywhere. We've got Mank, we've got Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, we've got Minari, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, Promising Young Woman, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. right? I think we can be very confident in saying those movies aren't going anywhere. I don't feel the need to explain why those will be in Best Picture. The PGAs, I think, very heavily support those 7, and I think everything else thus far has supported those 7. That brings us to the potential last 3. I have The Father in a very solid 8th slot, despite missing the PGA. I still think it's a film that the Academy is going to love and heavily recognize, especially if it's with Hopkins, with Coleman, and if it's in screenplay. I think it's a very solid contender for that 8th slot in picture. For me, it just depends on how many they put in there. That's the one that I'm most confident in. When it comes to those last 2 slots, they're difficult to fill. And a few months ago, hell, maybe even a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have chosen 2 different films. It's tough to not put Borat into this, coming hot off of that PGA nomination, but I don't really foresee that movie ending up in Best Picture regarding a nomination, especially over the other 2 that I chose. News of the World is also one that I struggled to not nominate, but News of the World missing out on the PGA, which, in my opinion, a movie like News of the World, which isn't really front-running in any category at all, needs something like a PGA nomination to be represented in Best Picture, so I kind of had to eliminate that thought. What I ended up going with was Judas and the Black Messiah and Sound of Metal. Both of these are tough. Both of these are tough choices to put into my 10 because Judas and the Black Messiah was relatively quiet pretty much completely other than Daniel Kaluuya. But I do think that film is making noise. Plus, historically, companion piece films go together very well. Look at a couple years ago when Dunkirk and Darkest Hour both found themselves in Best Picture. You could almost argue that those fucking movies are a double feature, right? This year you have Trial of the Chicago 7 and you have Judas and the Black Messiah. I don't want to say similar stories, but the stories overlap basically at the same exact time. And they're both exceptionally different from very different filmmakers and very different styles. And Daniel Kaluuya is such a runaway in that film, plus the film was so well received that I think if they're going to go for 10, I have to believe Judas and the Black Messiah is going to be in there now, despite the fact that a few weeks ago I didn't think so because I thought their campaign and their timing was a little bit off, and it just wasn't working right because people hadn't seen Judas and the Black Messiah until too late. Sound of Metal, I think, has just started to make enough noise where it could be one of these last 10. It's definitely my least confident pick in these 10. I could totally see with them going for something like News of the World or even a Borat over Sound of Metal, but it's making a lot of noise. Riz Ahmed is such a set lock. If it winds up in screenplay, as I said earlier, I think it finds itself in picture. It's difficult for me to choose these 2 because, again, I have to pick 10 because I don't know what route they're going to go with the amount of nominations they're going to pick. So I got to keep to my guns. I got to go with Sound of Metal, and I got to go with Judas and the Black Messiah, keeping The Father at that 8th place slot, and those locked-in 7 as being a real good 7 that we can all bank on and put some good money on and have pretty good faith that we'll get a solid return. But that's it. Just like that. Those are my nominations predictions. Like I said, it hasn't been the most difficult list to compile, but it has been still at that a difficult one. I'm not 100% confident in my picks, largely because of the BAFTAs. I was looking to the BAFTAs for some clarity. What I got instead was an ice pick up the ass. So, I hope that these are relatively accurate. I truly believe that they will be. I trust my gut, I trust my instinct, and I trust the precursors that I'm using and the precursors that I'm not using for the reasons that I'm using them. This is a very divisive subject, the Oscar nominations, and I love that, and I want to hear your comments down below. Disrespect me all you want. I don't shit all over my predictions. Please don't shit all over each other in the comments section. Don't get angry. Don't get heated. That tends to happen. It's going to be all right, I promise, no matter what. A couple of big things coming up. We're going to be live streaming on Monday morning for my reaction to the 2021 Academy Award nominations. I will be, again, live. I will be answering questions. And that's where my camera ran out of storage without giving me any kind of forewarning or letting me know. Luckily, it happened at the very end of the video. I just woke up the next morning, so I will give a quick outro to this video. Again, be there on Monday for that stream. It's going to be awesome. If you have any comments, please throw them down in the comment section below. Be as respectful as you possibly can to at least other commenters. I'm happy for you to shit, trash, do whatever you want to my opinions, because that's what I'm here for. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for more content just like this. I appreciate all of the support that we've been getting recently. It has been genuinely fucking awesome, and I will see you guys next time.